as long as you've been invoking the name of one of our guests?
Sure, we have to get back to the two things I promised on Twitter.
Well,
that
that's fine, but we might as well do that and get it out of the way.
Let's go ahead and get it out of the way.
You were besieged. I was besieged that we have to ask you about one cut in question. This was about late last week. This is Chuck Todd talking about the guilty plea of Kevin Kleinsmith, an FBI lawyer, as part of John Durham's probe. And here is what Chuck Todd had to say about it.
What's unclear is whether this is a serious investigation into what else, like the issue of WikiLeaks and how many American citizens' privacy and rights were violated by these Russian hackers who did this, if there's any interest in investigating that at all, or if there's just interest in creating confusion about investigating the investigators here. But we will wait for this Durham investigation and see if there is any concern about how many American citizens were targeted by WikiLeaks, something that seems to have gotten lost with this Justice Department. Meanwhile, over on Capitol.
Okay, so I'm supposed to ask you about this because this is, I don't know what this is.
It's a total Chuck Todd obfuscation. Okay, he's completely trying to cover up the issue of the Durham investigation. But the question is, so he wants to divert, right? It's just like if he were talking about power outages in California, he would probably blame Trump or somehow create something that was just a diversion, so you didn't pay any attention to it. So it's a diversion. But the question is, why WikiLeaks? I mean, people's stuff was violated by the IRS, by Google, by all kinds of people. Why WikiLeaks? Is it just, I mean, I have two theories. One theory is that he just came into the studio and he saw something on WikiLeaks and it was the thing he thought up to try and divert from the actual thing that the Durham investigation is looking at, which is abuse of government power using prosecutorial and investigative authority from the government for political reasons and making up evidence in order to create FBI investigations and corruption in the FBI and all kinds of stuff like that, which is what the Durham investigation is about. And somehow he brings WikiLeaks in, which has nothing to do with this, except that he mentioned Russia, and Russia's involved. Well, Russia wasn't involved, but in the Durham investigation, in the corruption, they obviously created and out of thin air this Russian collusion narrative. So somehow, I don't know, he either had too much to drink the night before, he looked for something to divert, and that was the best thing he could come up with. Or I think someone on Twitter suggested that he has some personal thing in WikiLeaks that he doesn't want exposed. I don't know, in his thing that he thinks might have got hacked that he doesn't want exposed. Maybe he was on Pedophile Island along with Bill Clinton.
No. You've got no.
No, I have absolutely no. I have absolutely zero reason to believe that. Zero reason whatsoever to believe that.
That's horrible.
But it's the same thing that he has to bring up WikiLeaks with Durham. It's a total out of blue sky, out of nowhere issue. Nowhere.
If you were to give a win place in a show to media bias over the weekend on the Sunday shows, I don't even think that makes third place.
Okay, now I stopped watching the Sun. I used to watch only when Hugh was on,
right?
And I couldn't stand it,
right?
Because every time he would make a good point, they would interrupt him, cut him off, blah blah blah. So he couldn't make the point. He couldn't finish the point. So he was just there to be a foil. I think. I don't know why he does it, but he's just there to be a foil, so they can say, look how bad conservatives are. They're stupid. They're dumb. They're awful. But we have one. He's our token. And we have our token here to show how unbiased we are and to show how fair we are. Not to show, to fake how unbiased we are and to fake how fair we are. But I have to say, a friend of mine called me up on Monday and just said, I watched this, we were sitting around and we'd been gone for a week, like you, been gone for a week. We decided we wanted to catch up on what was going on. We turned on the Sunday shows, said, we switched all of them. We couldn't watch a single one. They said they're unwatchable. They are so much left-wing propaganda. They're just unwatchable. And I think Meet the Press is unwatchable. Even when he was on it, it's unwatchable.
Fair. I understand everybody in the audience wants to see Chuck Todd.
Right. So I can't give a win, place, and show to something I've never, to a race I didn't see.
Another guest who, until recently, at her decision, not ours, was a weekly guest.
By the way, Axios guy's back, huh?
He is?
I thought he was back. Did he get replayed? I thought he was back once. Okay.
I don't think so.
All right,
I don't know who this person is of which you speak.
Mike Allen.
Who's that?
Axios.
What are they?
Okay, go on.
Margaret Brennan was once a guest on this show. She hosts Face the Nation. She has on Jared Kushner, the son-in-law of the president, special assistant to the president. And why do you think the White House would have made him available for the weekend shows?
Perhaps because a major deal was made by this.
And it is a major deal, is it not?
It is, along with...
It is a big deal.
With Sadat and all the other deals that have been done. It is a huge deal and a major success, which Chuck Todd would have trumped enormously had Obama or Biden done it.
Right. Exactly.
Right.
So she has him on, 9-minute hit. He also
You
does...
missed the bell for Chuck Todd.
Oh, well, fine. I'll give you your bell. Okay. He does an 11-minute hit later on Fox with Maria Bartiromo, who is really a Sunday show to watch, by the way. She's really good.
She is really good. Maria Bartiromo is very good. She is very smart, and she knows economics. Those other bozos, I don't think Chuck Todd knows a dollar from a dime, but Maria Bartiromo is very smart, and she asks good questions. I mean, she is absolutely. If you want to watch something on Sunday,
11-minute hit.
That's the one to watch. It's better than Big Fox. It's better than watching
11-minute
hit
hit with Jared Kushner, and she spent the first 8-9 minutes on the deal because it was a big deal. It was important.
And by the way, when you schedule interviews, I did lots of them when I was in Congress. I'm just a lowly member of Congress. I wasn't in the administration.
You don't script questions, but you
say, what do you want to talk about? We want to talk about that. And they ask you, is there something you want to make sure we talk about?
So
that
they're
kind
prepped,
of thing.
right?
Right. So they're prepped and that sort of thing. And you say they say we want to ask you about, or you say I want to talk about, and that's the way the world works. And by the way, if either party screws the other on that. In other words, I say I want to talk about this and I don't, or the questioner says we want to talk about this and they don't. You don't ever go back, or they never ask you again. It's like you don't do that.
Or in this case, the White House may not send anybody from the White House back on there again.
I don't know why they do anyway.
9-minute hit with Margaret Brennan, supposed to be on at least a good chunk of it on this peace deal. Here is Margaret Brennan's first substantive question.
Thank you. I do want to get to some business here. Jared, you have a wide portfolio on the issue of coronavirus. On Wednesday, we had over 1,500 deaths in this country in a single day. That brings us back to the kind of rate we were at in the month of May. You heard the CDC director. They're projecting 200,000 deaths by Labor Day. Do you believe the administration has control of the virus, and what do you think you've done wrong?
He answers it for a minute and a half, outlining everything that the president's been saying every day in his press conferences that she knows the answer to, but that's how she starts. Here is her second question.
On the ground.
But I want to know, though, what is the actual conviction of the task force at this point? Is it to contain the spread of the virus, or is it to, as Dr. Atlas, the new advisor to the task force, says, really just isolate and protect vulnerable, high-risk individuals?
He answers a question almost word for word the same way the second time. Here's her third question.
Right, but what is the strategy in terms of, are you looking at containing? Because if you listen to Dr. Atlas, this new advisor, he has talked about really just protecting the vulnerable. But according to the CDC, 45% of adults, that's nearly half of Americans, have comorbidities. That's diabetes, that's asthma, that's just being overweight. A huge portion of the United States is vulnerable here. Do you think you have control of the virus?
He answers the question the same way for the third time. We are now 6 minutes into a 9-minute interview, and Jared Kushner is finally saying, you know why I came on, right, Mags? Here is Jared pushing back, saying, can we get back on topic? And here is how she ends her fourth question.
To the nursing homes. But Margaret, look, I came on today to talk about the historic breakthrough that the president achieved for peace in the Middle East. It's the first peace agreement in 26 years.
He's got to bring it up and talk about it. She won't even let him do it.
Well, I do want to talk to you about that, Jared.
No, you really don't. She's lying.
And she's interrupting him.
Yes.
So
because he's saying good things. It's just like Hugh on Meet the Press.
Right.
He's saying good things. Oh, no, we can't allow this. We can't allow this. This might actually convince somebody the president did a good thing. We don't want that.
Chuck Todd
CBS News. We don't allow
Todd
that.
had Robert O'Brien on the same subject on this deal, and he tried to push back saying, wouldn't this have been easier if you would have stayed in the Iran deal? And he at least gave Robert O'Brien the runway to push back and say, look, the only two people that are really against this are the Ayatollah and Ben Rhodes, which was a wonderful slam that Chuck gave him the runway for.
Wouldn't this have been better if it... What is... Okay, Chuck Todd is absolutely... That's as asinine as what he said before about WikiLeaks, what we were talking about. That's completely asinine. The reason this deal is happening is because UAE doesn't like Iran.
But by him saying that, he took the counterpoint and set it up and gave Robert O'Brien a good minute and a half to completely debunk it and slam the Obama team in the process. And he didn't interrupt him. Back to Margaret Brennan's thrilling fourth question, not on the subject.
Approach. He's based on science. He's based on data, not based on conventional thinking. And again, I think that you're seeing the president continue to work with the governors and everyone to bring forward the best policies in order to get the best outcome possible with the virus.
Okay, before we move on, though, you're a parent. There are a lot of nervous parents out there, as you just heard. Are you sending your children back to in-person education in a classroom?
Oh, for cripe's sake, she won't get off the damn virus.
No, they don't want to talk about this deal because I know they're saying that it's the end of Palestine and it was a racist deal because every Republican does is racist. Racist when you breathe. I heard math was racist last week. But that the bottom line is it is a historic and very, very important deal. Very, very important deal for future peace in the Middle East.
Question 5. She now has about...
It's not over yet?
She has about 90 seconds left. Question 5.
I want to quickly ask you about the election before we go to the Middle East, because you do play a key role as an advisor. The Postal Service sent letters, as you know, to about 46 states saying that mail-in ballots may not arrive in time by Election Day. You were deeply involved in 2016. Back then, President Trump performed better than his Democratic rival with voters 65 and over. These are people who would count as vulnerable and might be nervous about in-person voting. Are you worried you're going to disenfranchise some of your own voters?
The stupid post office. So now we got to go down the post office road. They finally get to, with like a minute to go, they finally get to why he was brought on there to begin with. But listen to how she frames the question.
Their leaders.
Well, and many of those voters would like to vote safely by mail if they're not comfortable going to a polling facility. On the Middle East, there were hostilities overnight in Gaza. There were Israeli airstrikes. Palestinian militants fired off rockets. Doesn't this underscore that the core conflict in the region remains unaddressed with what you just negotiated? And what is your response? I mean, do you have outreach right now to the Palestinian Authority and to the region?
What the hell was that?
All right. So I have two things to say. First of all, one, on the mail-in ballots, what a ridiculous thing. What states, for absentee, or if they're going to do mail-in, what they need to do is what Arizona does. You get an absentee ballot, which I vote absentee. If it is not received by the registrar on election day, it is not counted. And it says in huge letters in English and Spanish all over the ballot thing, mail this at least 6 days in advance if you want to ensure that this ballot is counted. And so that is what you do. This whole deal that somehow I ought to be able to mail the ballot on election day and have it show up 7 or 8 days later and be counted.
Or in California,
is just ridiculous.
17 days later they want to count them in California.
I know, just ridiculous. Absolutely absurd. And that just means it enables people to go continue harvesting ballots. If a race is close, they can run out and get ballots and fill them out and turn them in a week later. in order to change the thing. I mean, it's the corruption in that is unbelievable. Second thing I was going to say, your point in showing this Brennan, whatever her name is, man, you just look at her and she has that angry leftist female look about her. You can see them. I can see them on the street here in California. She just has that look about her. Anyway, your point is she worse than Chuck Todd? I will concede.
Case by case basis.
I will concede.
This weekend, she gets the gold medal for media bias.
I will concede that she, and maybe week in, week out, I don't know. I don't watch any of these shows. Maybe she is worse than Chuck Todd. But I mean, that's like, is the baseball team that wins 50 games worse than the baseball team that wins 51? Yeah, it's worse, but they both suck.
Okay,
and
all I'm saying is I look at it like I look at it with Trump as a case-by-case basis. When the president says something I don't agree with, I say I don't agree with it.
Right.
If there is media bias by one of the Sunday shows that is just over the top, I'm going to pig pile on. I'm not going to specifically look for anything Chuck Todd says and make him the
I understand.
pinata.
I understand, but the reason we have the Chuck Todd pinata is he's on the Hugh Hewitt Show.
Right. And why wouldn't we want to keep him on there if it gives Hugh influence into that world?
Because
Brennan of her own decision chose not to be on the show.
I'm fine with that. The only thing I think Hugh should do is Hugh should ask him very probing questions about the press. I think the press, and it's not just Hugh, I think everyone, when they have a press person on who is a not just biased, but who is basically in the tank with the DNC and whose clear motive is to help them, they need to ask them questions like, why do you never show, Chuck Todd, why on Meet the Press have you never shown any of Joe Biden's ridiculous stumbling comments which indicate that he has Alzheimer's or some kind of mental problem,
some kind of dementia? Why? He's not all there.
I think it's worse than dementia. I think it's
full blown Alzheimer's.
And it's moving fast. That's the thing. He is deteriorating rapidly. So I think it could be Alzheimer's or something else. But anyway, I'm not a doctor. I don't know. But why, Chuck Todd, do you never talk about that? Why do you never show that? Why is it when the president says something he shouldn't have said, which he does, you bring it on the show? But when Biden says something he shouldn't have said, which he does, you never talk about it. These are the questions that Chuck Todd needs to answer. Now, why doesn't you answer those? Because if he asks him, he probably won't come back on the show again. I get that, but at some point we got to stop pussyfooting around with with these press guys. They need to be asked tough questions because they are not press. They have made themselves part of the political process. They've made themselves politicians. They've made themselves influence. They've made themselves all that. And we need to be asking them all questions. Why do you cover this and not that? Why?
I forgot, by the way. I should have had their ding in there.
Okay. Why do we do this? Why do you do this and not that? Why do you ignore these things and cover these other things? That's we need to ask them these questions, because the correct answer, if they were truthful, would be because I'm trying to help Joe Biden get elected. But they won't say that. So I want to know, I'm curious what they would say.
Okay, fair enough.
What would they make up?